Let's look at executing a swing using a mouse or a motion swing, using the mouse to move it. You need to set that under your settings, under the controls menu, and let's go to a motion swing. If you set that to motion swing, then you will be required to move the mouse to execute a swing, and the mouse movement will be in a vertical direction, or backwards and forwards on the desktop if you prefer that wording. Set your aim point, no different than any other, either with the left click or with the arrow keys, or again depending on set your you can set your aim with either the left click on aim at the barber pole. You can use the arrow keys left or right, or depending on the level that you've selected your player, you can aim from the map, the overhead map view. My player does not. I'm set at Tour Pro, so it doesn't allow me to aim in the map overhead map view. Once you've set your aim, when you go to execute your shot in motion swing, basically you have to execute the swing within the swing meter again, and you'll want to click left button to start this motion or to start the swing, and then you'll have to move the mouse backwards or towards you, and then once you've hit your power that you want, you can move the mouse forward or away from you, and that will then will execute the swing once you've passed where you started the mouse. So for instance, if you start the mouse right in the very middle of the meter and you pull back, as soon as when you on your forward swing, as soon as you pass that middle part, then the swing part will be completed and you'll see the ball take off. I like to start at the top of the meter or near the top of the meter, and I also like to have it such that my power is at 100% when I'm at or near the bottom of the meter, and that allows me to choose slightly in between power. Let's say if I wanted 3/4 power, I would go from here about 3/4 of the way down and then forward. And again, once I pass the starting point, that's when the ball would actually be hit and you would see it fly off into the distance. So let's try one here. One thing to note is you see here I got the power to 100%, which is good. The ratio is a critical portion of motion swing. That ratio is 0.27, and so what you want essentially is the time that it takes you to pull the mouse backwards. You want that the time that it takes you to push the mouse forward to be 1/4 of that time. Now, any pause that you make at the back, when you finish your backswing, any pause there now counts towards the backswing. So because I'd paused for a few seconds at the backswing and it only took a very short time to go forward, this ratio was very fast, which resulted in a hook or a pull. If I go back really slowly, then I need to go forward relatively slowly as well. And if my ratio is higher than 0.25, the ball goes to the right. You'll notice that the distance that the ball went was quite short, and that's because my swing took more than 3 seconds. So you need to execute the swing within 3 seconds, otherwise you will lose significant distance off the shot. So that takes some practice to develop a tempo of making your swing to get the proper ratio and to keep it below 3 seconds or under 3 second swing time. There's no feedback in the main screen on the game to tell you how long your swing has taken, but you can access that information at least when you're playing, at least when you're on the range or playing by yourself. I think when you're playing in a tournament it doesn't, it might show up as well. But what you'll need to do is bring up the console, and by default that's the F8 key on your keyboard. And I'm just going to clear it so that we can see what's going on. I'll go back to the game just by closing the console, F8 again. So again, if I go back nice and slow, set my power, and then forward, my ratio's pretty close, 0.27. That's fairly close. Anything within 0.27, 0.28 is reasonably close to 0.25. But you'll see my distance is only 209 yards, even though I had, what was it, about 96% power or something. And the reason that is, again, if I bring up the console, you can see that I had a bad swing because my duration was 4.5 seconds. So that's what lost us the distance. So I'm going to clear the console again, just so that we can keep track of whether we have a bad swing or not. So now I've got to swing a little bit faster overall to try and make sure that I get a better distance. So 98% power, should fly 271 yards. The ratio 0.23, that's why it was a hair to the left, not too bad. And 265 yards. So I was a little bit short, but again, that's probably mostly because, as you can see, my swing was slightly slow, 3.34 seconds. So again, I took a little more than 3 seconds, so now I gotta speed up the swing a little bit more. Well, I got 100%, but because I swung a little quicker on the downstroke, my ratio was well below 0.25 and it went left. Now the yardage, as you can see, it carried 250 yards. Total at 271. There's nothing in the console here now that flags and says that I had a bad swing, which tells me that I completed the swing within 3 seconds. However, the ratio was so poor, 0.16, that I didn't get a good distance, and of course it went well left. So again, you want to develop a tempo such you get close to 0.25, close to 100% power, or near or even above 100%, within 3 seconds. That's adjusted by either the movement of your mouse, also the sensitivity of the mouse. So that's under settings, under game. If you set this to what appears to be a lower sensitivity, 0.5 let's say, now when I move the mouse, I only move it a little bit. As you can see, I only move the mouse maybe a third of the distance within the meter to get me to 100% power, whereas before, by setting, I had to move it the full length of the meter before I got to 100. So here, if I start, you'll see I'm just a quarter of the way maybe, and obviously my ratio was way off. But nonetheless, so that's the impact of the mouse sensitivity setting that it has on your motion swing. So you can, thankfully, you can adjust that while you're playing the game even. So if you set it up to the maximum of 4, now you'll see when I go down to the full meter, Well, here I'm only just barely to 50%. So obviously for me, that means that my swing meter, or that I will never be able to hit 100% power almost, because at this setting, when I start the swing meter stops at about 75% maybe, 70%, because I physically can't go any lower on the screen with the mouse. So that tells me my mouse setting, my sensitivity setting, is too high in the game. Now that also depends on your DPI setting of your mouse. A lot of mice these days have a button that you can adjust your DPI setting. So if you adjust that setting, if I turn mine up a little bit, from mine was at the minimum, now when I bring it all the way to the bottom and go forward, that didn't make any difference. I thought it was going to make a difference. Let me turn it up one more level. I think I have 4 different settings of my mouse. It certainly feels faster on the screen now. No, it doesn't change that power. But what it does change is how quickly, or it changes the range of motion of my mouse. So now my mouse moves maybe a total of maybe a half an inch on the screen, or sorry, on the desk, on the mouse pad, to go from the top of the meter right to the bottom of the screen. It's maybe a half an inch. But again, I can't reach 100%, so that tells me my sensitivity is too low. Yeah, it's probably best to wait till that screen comes before you change this. So back to the game sensitivity. So again, depending on your system or on your swing, you'll want to set your meter sensitivity. Again, I like it such that when I go from the top to the bottom, then I get near 100%. That does allow me to get beyond 100% on the, if I do decide I need a little more than 100% power, because again, I can bring the mouse all the way back to the bottom of the screen, and there I am at 122% power. So the mouse sensitivity determines how much your mouse moves now. So again, I guess I didn't mention it. Now when I move to the bottom for 100% power, the mouse is moving, I would say, at least 3/4 of an inch, possibly even a little bit farther. Maybe an inch back and an inch forward. So depending on your sensitivity will depend on how much that moves. And the speed of that, the speed of the movement will depend on your DPI setting of your mouse. So I still need to move, I still have to move it 3/4 of an inch to get back to full power. Sorry, I had changed it up to the highest DPI setting on the mouse, and it's very fast now, my mouse movement. So I don't, now I've got to move the mouse fairly slowly over that 3/4 of an inch distance to get my power and hopefully the correct ratio. So that's too fast for me. I'm going to take it back to the slowest range. I find that better. At the slower setting, I find I can have a little more control over the mouse, not exhibited by that swing. But again, this allows me to move the mouse a comfortable distance at a comfortable speed to try and get my ratio to 0.25. So with the motion swing, as you can see, I've been trying to hit a straight shot by going from 12 o'clock down to 6 o'clock and then back up to 12 o'clock. If I wanted to hit a draw intentionally, I could set it up in my shot shaper, or with the mouse swing I can hit a draw by making an inside out golf swing, which means what I'll want to do is perhaps start at 12 o'clock, come back down to maybe 5:30 and finish at 12 o'clock. So let's see if we can do one. Well, I was a little bit slow on the ratio, but you maybe notice that the ball did try and make a little bit of a draw movement right at the start, and then it was overridden by my poor ratio. I'm not having very much luck doing this. That one I missed by the toe, and I was in out only one, which is very small and won't promote a draw very well. That had a little more draw, even though my ratio was a little higher than 0.25. So for me, I find it a little easier to go, instead of starting at 12 and trying to come down on a curved mouse movement, I find it just as easy maybe to start over about here, let's say 12:30, bring it back to 5:30, and then up to 12:30 again. So then, using a straight path, even though it's a little bit crooked, then I was able to get a ratio much better, and you can saw the result there. It was a bit of a draw. And again, the more you go, I mean, you could make a wild hook even. So again, that ball hooked or drew, even though the ratio was greater than 0.25, sorry. Similarly, if you want to make a slice, you can go from 11:30 to 5:30-ish. Did I say 5:30 over here? I meant 6:30. 11:30 to 5:30, and even with the good ratio, you saw the ball flight off to the right in a fade or a slice. Oops. Again, you don't want to start your swing outside the meter. It will just change the aim on you. So that's the motion swing essentially. Your offset is your heel or toe, and that is if you start right at 12 o'clock, come down, but if you miss 12 o'clock on the way back, you'll see I was inside here. That promoted a toe, a shot off the toe of the club, and that's going to help you fade the ball if you're trying to do that. Likewise, if you come down, and then if you come to the right, now that's off the heel. Because my ratio is so slow, it's overcompensating for that heel hit. But all of these factors play into the motion swing. So to get a straight shot takes a little bit of skill with the mouse, and it also relies on you having your DPI set such that the duration or the movement of the mouse on your mouse pad and the speed at which it moves on the cursor is matching your preferences or your comfort. Or perhaps you just need to keep practicing it to get used to it. It does take a lot of effort to get comfortable using the mouse swing, especially if you're trying to move the ball right to left or left to right without using the shot shaper. So that's a summary of the motion swing.